4 years, Prince Louis has been the royal family's most unpredictable spark of energy, a cheeky, mischievous whirlwind who effortlessly stole the spotlight at every public appearance. While his siblings, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, seamlessly slipped into their royal roles, Louis seemed to exist in his own world. He didn't follow the invisible rules of royal protocol. Instead, he danced through life, unapologetically himself, bringing an unscripted humanity to the royal narrative. His playful antics and uninhibited spirit reminded everyone that, behind the regal titles and centuries-old traditions, the Windsors were still a family, real people with real emotions. In a world where every royal movement is meticulously choreographed, Louis was the unexpected improvisation, the burst of laughter that echoed through the palace halls and out into the world. But something has changed. And the shift has been so dramatic, so sudden, that royal watchers are left wondering what's really going on behind the palace gates. The once carefree and exuberant Prince Louis now appears reserved and restrained. The twinkle of mischief in his eyes seems to have faded, replaced by an unfamiliar seriousness. His energetic outbursts have been replaced by perfect posture and polished smiles. At public events, he stands still, listens attentively, and behaves with a level of discipline that feels almost unnatural for a child his age. At first, people tried to rationalize it. Perhaps he was just tired or not feeling well. But as months passed, it became undeniable, this wasn't a passing phase. Louis's transformation seemed deliberate. And the question on everyone's lips became impossible to ignore: what happened to Prince Louis? From the moment he could walk, Prince Louis treated the world like his playground. He didn't walk, he ran. He didn't sit still, he fidgeted, climbed, and explored every corner of his surroundings. Public events weren't solemn occasions to him, they were grand adventures. At Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee, Louis cemented himself as a fan favorite. While the rest of the royal family stood stoically on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, Louis made headlines with his unfiltered reactions. When fighter jets thundered overhead, he covered his ears and grimaced. He playfully shushed his mother, waved dramatically to the crowds, and bounced with excitement, as if he were the star of his own show. The public couldn't get enough of it. Social media exploded with memes and adoring comments. People loved seeing a child simply being a child, even in the most formal of settings. It humanized the monarchy. But while the world laughed and celebrated Louis's antics, there were whispers behind the scenes. Royal insiders hinted that not everyone within the palace found his behavior charming. Some courtiers reportedly worried that Louis's wild streak could tarnish the royal image, that his unpredictability might overshadow the dignity of the institution. After all, the monarchy thrives on control, and not all royal behavior is met with approval. Perhaps the shift in Louis didn't come out of nowhere. Perhaps it was carefully orchestrated. Could it be that the palace had plans for Louis, plans that required him to settle down and present a more polished public persona? Was this transformation not merely a reflection of growing up, but a conscious effort to fit him into the rigid framework of royal expectations? The truth, it seems, is more complicated than anyone anticipated. The sudden shift: a new Prince Louis emerges. In recent public appearances, the change has been undeniable. The boy who once bounced with boundless energy now moves with careful precision. He stands perfectly still during ceremonies, his hands clasped in front of him, his eyes scanning the crowd without a hint of playfulness. His cheeky grins have softened into polite smiles. The lightness in his step has disappeared, replaced by measured, deliberate movements. At one particular high-profile event, Louis sat through an entire church service without fidgeting once. He listened to the speakers with a seriousness far beyond his years. He stood, knelt, and bowed at precisely the right moments, his every action executed flawlessly, as if he'd been meticulously rehearsed. Royal watchers were stunned. This wasn't the Louis they knew. The transformation was so stark, so complete, that it almost felt unnatural. Children don't change like that overnight, especially not children as spirited as Louis. Was this change an emotional response to the weight of being a royal, or was something more purposeful at play? Kate and William were visibly affected. In candid moments, Kate's gaze lingered on her youngest son with a subtle sadness, her expression caught between pride and longing. William, ever the composed figure, seemed more protective than usual, standing closer to Louis, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder, almost as if he feared the boy might slip away entirely. Behind the smiles and waves, something was shifting. And it wasn't just Louis who was feeling the weight of it. Behind the palace walls, the emotional toll on Kate and William. At home, Louis had always been the heart of the family. The child who filled the palace halls with laughter, the one who turned bedtime routines into dance parties and dragged his siblings outside to climb trees. But lately, that infectious energy has quieted. The wild races through the corridors have turned into leisurely walks. The spontaneous bursts of song and giggles have faded into quieter, more reserved play. Even within the safety of the palace walls, Louis seems restrained. Kate, who has always been a devoted and hands-on mother, is struggling with the change. She once described Louis as her little tornado, a force of nature who kept her constantly on her toes. But now, she finds herself reminiscing about the chaos she used to find exhausting. She watches videos of Louis' past antics on her phone, her eyes misting over as she wonders where that fearless, free-spirited boy has gone. William, too, is feeling the loss. He understands the pressures of royal life better than anyone. He's spent his entire existence balancing duty with personal identity. But watching Louis change so suddenly, so completely, has left him shaken. He quietly confided to a friend that he worries Louis is growing up too fast, that the pressures of royal life are already shaping him in ways that can't be undone. And deep down, both William and Kate are haunted by the same unspoken fear. Was this truly just maturity? Or had someone told Louis to change? Could the very palace they'd worked so hard to protect be subtly influencing Louis's every move? Was his transformation a natural step toward growing up? Or had external pressures, from royal advisors, palace protocol, or even his older siblings, played a role? What does the future hold for Prince Louis? The transformation of Prince Louis has left the world divided. Some believe this is simply a natural part of growing up, that is outgrowing his wild phase and slowly settling into his place within the monarchy. There are whispers that Louis's sudden shift was no accident, that someone within the palace intervened, quietly instructing the young prince to rein in his behavior for the sake of the crown. After all, the royal family is no stranger to carefully crafted narratives. Or is this transformation a temporary facade, a performance the young prince is putting on as he navigates the pressures of royal life? Will he eventually reclaim his spirited side when the pressure of royal expectations eases? Or has the weight of tradition already begun to crush his unique identity? One theory gaining traction among royal experts is that Louis's behavior shift is part of a long-term strategy to present him as a more serious contender in royal duties. But would this really be a good thing for a child who's known for his charm and humor? Or is there still hope that Louis will one day find his way back to being the carefree spark the world once adored? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the world is watching. And whether Louis continues down this polished path, or one day reclaims the playful spark that made him so beloved, his story is far from over. Because, if history has taught us anything, it's this: the wildest stars are the hardest to silence. And Prince Louis might just be the brightest star of them all. What do you think? Is Prince Louis simply growing up? Or is something more going on behind the palace gates? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more royal updates.